How you cut and light a cigar could make or break the experience, or it could potentially ruin a perfectly good cigar. And while this should be a fairly simple snip and flick process, it's also 100% understandable why you would have some reservations, given the different types of cigars, the different cutters and lighters. Now, some of this will come down to personal preference. The more you smoke, the more you'll pick up methods that you prefer, but we're here to talk about how the right tool and the right cutting steps can prevent mishaps. Now, what are some of those mishaps? Well, just structurally speaking, the wrong cut could cause your cigar to unravel. And then there's the negative effects on how the cigar smokes. It could cause canoeing or tunneling where the tobacco burns unevenly. The wrong cut could cause the draw to burn the tobacco too quickly. Or the draw could be too hard and you won't get the right amount of smoke at the right temperature. All of this can cause you to miss out on the cigar's flavor, and that's on you. So let's talk about cutting cigars. Now, it's totally reasonable to worry about getting the cut wrong. Like blowing out candles, you really only get one shot. Now, the cut you make is going to dictate the draw in two ways. It's going to affect the actual amount of smoke that makes it through the cigar, the intake, and then it's going to also affect the way the tobacco burns on the other end. You'll hear us describe the draw as either hard or loose. Loose means that it's drawing too easily, and this is often the result of making too large of a cut, or the tobacco itself is packed too loosely, and this is going to create a hotter and harsher burn. If it's a hard draw, that means it's going to be more difficult to pull smoke from the cherry, and this is often a result of a cut that's too slight or tobacco that's packed too tightly. So that's why where you cut makes such a difference. Now, structurally, the worst thing you can do is to cut this in a way that it causes the cigar to unravel. So let's do a little Cigar Anatomy 101 to figure out exactly where we should cut. On each cigar, you will find a seam at the head of the cigar that separates the cap from the wrapper. Now, the cap is the part of the tobacco leaf that wraps over the head of the cigar, and you can have double caps and triple caps, but that's a whole nother conversation. What we're looking for is that seam, and we want to make sure that we never cut above that seam into the wrapper. As we talk about different cutting types, each will cut that cap in a slightly different way and will have a different result on how that cigar smokes. So the first cutter that we're going to talk about is probably the most common and simple, the guillotine cutter or the straight cutter. And as described, this double blade action makes a straight cut across the top of the cigar. And your biggest risk here is probably going to be going too far up and cutting into the shoulder or the wrapper. So you want to make sure that you identify that seam and don't cut beyond it. Secondly, you want to make sure that your cut is decisive. Go too slow and you risk that blade catching on the tobacco and tearing it or smashing it. Think about cutting an onion with a chef's knife. Go too slow or without enough force and you won't have enough slicing power to get through that skin. Now, at the same time, there's no need for overkill. Just make sure that you have a quick, deliberate cut and you should be fine. V-cutters make a horizontal V-shaped notch or divot into the cap of the cigar, and these make a clean cut and often leave some of that cap intact. Now, one of the main benefits of V-cutters is that it will actually dictate the depth of the cut. So with a standard size cigar, you'll just put the head into that groove, make your cut, and you're going to get the same size and depth of cut every time. Now, one of the drawbacks of the V-cutter is if you ever lose the edge on that blade, there's a good chance that you're going to mash the tobacco rather than get a clean cut. And you also have to worry about the draw with a smaller cut size. And in fact, many smokers will actually make two V-cuts into the top of their cigar to increase the surface area and increase the draw of the cigar. Punch cutters are clean and consistent. They make a circular cut into the top of your cigar vertically, and this effectively eliminates the chances of overcutting. You cut down rather than across, and many would argue that this also reduces the likelihood of you damaging the cigar. The result is a clean, centered cut that allows for a very direct draw. Now, the main downside to punch cutters is that they're really only effective on round-capped cigars. So for torpedoes and the like, you might need a different cutter. But when it comes to cutting a first cigar, punch cutters are just about foolproof. Now, on Claro's polished gunmetal torch lighter, the bottom actually doubles as a punch cutter. So you simply invert, extend that punch, and then you're ready to go. So this is a really handy combination to keep, especially if you're prone to losing your cutters and want everything combined in one unit. So these are a few of the main cutter options out there, and you'll find variations on each as well as other popular methods of cutters like cigar scissors, for example. But really it's going to come down to figuring out how that cut is going to either improve or hurt the smoking experience. The type of cut you make is going to affect the draw, as well as the location of the cut. How you light a cigar is going to affect that draw. And so you have to find the right combination and then experiment with different cigar types to figure out exactly what works. But having the right tool can make all of that easier. So thanks for watching. Be sure to check out our cigar accessories at caseelegance.com and subscribe to the channel for more content related to humidors and cigars.